Hi everyone, welcome to my first episode of a spin with me kind of episode where I talk you through and show you how I spin a braid of fiber basically from start to finish. So I'm hoping that this will be a interesting format to do, and I just feel like I personally haven't seen a video that is like this, and I'm hoping that you all enjoy seeing how I spin my fiber. This is by no means a tutorial. I just want to show you what I do. So I could definitely be making mistakes. I will talk through some of the mistakes that I make in here, things that I would do differently, but I thought it would be fun to kind of document maybe sometimes my normal process for doing a fiber spin, or just documenting if I do a new technique or something like that. So in today's video, I am going to be using a Union fiber braid that is dyed in this really pretty color. As you can see, I am unbraiding it right now, and it was crocheted. It's like a crochet chain, so you can just pull one of the ends, as you could see. And yeah, so this is kind of the first process of what I would do with a fiber braid, just to unbraid it if it came in a braided format. And sometimes I do like to just lay out the fiber as I'm doing here right now on the ground in kind of a back and forth kind of motion. Sometimes on the dyeing style you can see a pattern, and in this case I couldn't really see a pattern, but I just thought I would do that so you could see all of the fiber. And now I am going to split it in half, which is what I normally do. I'm planning on doing a 2-ply for this, so I would normally split it in half. And as you can see here, there was a very clear halfway mark to split it, but I think actually it was almost just falling apart in half, and so I think it actually was just folded in half, if that makes sense, as you might be able to see towards the end here. So now I just grabbed one side and I'm rolling it up into a ball, and that's what I normally do to keep track of the fiber. So yeah, you can see there's that one half just hanging on over there. And so I'm just going to keep on rolling it up and kind of splitting it down the middle. And you'll see, right at that halfway point, it just keeps going on to the other half. And so I think that this was actually just a very long braid of fiber that was folded in half and then braided up, which is new to me. And this is also the first time that I am using a fiber from Union Fiber. And yeah, so that's all kind of just an interesting process to me. I'm just refolding out what I have so that it's not in a tangled mess, so that you can see. Yeah, and I bought this fiber in person from La Mercerie, which is a yarn store on Bainbridge Island here near Seattle. So yeah, I'm really excited to be working with it. It is a 80% Corriedale, 20% nylon base, and this is my first spin using a fiber base that has nylon in it, so I'm pretty excited to get started. Yeah, I love how the fiber looks when you roll it up into a ball like that, and so I'm just admiring it there. All right, now it's time to bring out my wheel. I love my Ladybug wheel, and I got it at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, and I have been loving spinning my singles on here. I don't actually ply my fiber, my yarn on my Ladybug, so you'll be able to see me use both my Ladybug wheel here and also my electric spinner as well. So now I'm just setting it up. I like to use a Z twist for my singles and an S twist for when I do my plying. So you'll see that my wheel is turning clockwise. So I think if I remember correctly, my first thoughts about spinning with this fiber was that it felt pretty easy. Like, I don't think I really noticed, like, oh wow, maybe the nylon makes it feel extra different. But yeah, I just had to just get back into the motion of drafting, which is pulling out the fiber into the thickness that I wanted. I didn't really have a plan for the thickness. I just kind of decided to do whatever felt right and whatever the fiber kind of made it easy to do. And I think maybe I was getting something that could maybe get me like a fingering or a sport weight in the end. Trying to get some different angles here so that you could see the spinning. I'm not really sure which angles are the most interesting to watch, but let me know if there's an angle that you really like to see the spinning. You can see my cute little ladybug there on my wheel. I was very curious to see how the colors turned out after you spin it with the way that this fiber was dyed. It looked like it was a bit more, not quite speckly, but definitely more splotches of color versus like long strips of color. And so, yeah, I was very curious to see if it would look mostly white or if the colors would end up blending together. And it ended up looking a bit more blended. So instead of having like really dark purple and some white, it really kind of ended up just looking more like a slightly paler colored purple all throughout. And so I thought, yeah, that was very interesting. I am wearing my hand-spun socks while spinning this in this particular video clip. Yeah, it just makes me happy to have hand-spun socks and spinning with my hand-spun socks. All right, so now you can see I went forward a little in time, and I am not spinning this fast. I fast-forwarded this part, or made it, I think, more than double speed, just so you can kind of see over time, like how it looks like when you're building up your fiber on the bobbin. I thought that was just really fun to see when you make the video really fast. And now you can see even more colors. You can see there's like pink and purple, and now there's like a more green section going. And so I feel like that's always really fun when there's color in your fiber and the fiber changes colors, is to see the colors change while you're spinning. Now we're back to normal speed here. I am doing a short forward draw, I believe. So yeah, here's a close-up of what it looks like on the bobbin right now. That's kind of just like one pass-through from building up that yarn from the back to the front of my bobbin. All right, we're on the next day. So I did work on it a little bit more without recording it, but we are on the next day. I did an outfit change. Yeah, and we're just like continuing to work on this fiber. I was having a really good time, and I really liked the entire process so far. It's funny from this angle. You can't really see the fiber that I'm pulling out, it kind of looks like I'm just like pulling the fiber into nothing because it's blending in with the wall behind me or next to me. And as you can see, the way that I usually hold my fiber, I actually don't usually prep my fiber in any way besides splitting it up. Like I don't do any kind of pre-drafting of it, which maybe I should have mentioned earlier, but I usually just have it rolled up into a ball and then I just have the ball of fiber in my lap as I spin. At this closer angle, you might be able to see that I usually try to get the fiber kind of like in a triangle tip for me to grab, so that I grab the fiber from kind of like all ends of that entire strip. But I don't know if you'll be able to see it in this video clip, but I did notice this fiber getting kind of staticky on me, and so the fiber will sometimes come together at a tip like how it is right now, but at some points it will start flaring out, which made it kind of hard to work with. And that hasn't happened with me on any other fiber, so I did wonder if it had to do with the nylon being in there, but I'm not totally sure. So if you do know, let me know in the comments down below if you've had a similar experience to that. But if the fiber strip is kind of on the thicker side and I can't get like that nice kind of, I think it's called a drafting triangle going, I'll usually just go back and forth from one end of the fiber to the other. I think there's different ways you can do that. Sometimes you just move your fingers across the fiber like back and forth, and what I like to do is actually just like turn my fiber, because I think sometimes there's just like one way that is easier for me to move my drafting point, if that makes sense. Like I can do like left to right, but I can't go right to left, and so I have to turn my fiber so I can keep going left to right, for example. Here's another maybe fun angle for you to see. I just really like seeing the different colors on the bobbin as I spin, and just seeing all of that color build up. The colors are turning out really pretty and a lot more blended than I initially thought that it would, but I'm very happy with it. A more close-up view of what I am doing with my hands here in the fiber. It's very interesting because I don't see myself from this view when I'm spinning, and so I'm watching this and it's very interesting. have a top-down view. Wow, so many views of the spinning. All right, we're on a different day now. Oh, I wanted to mention that I usually, for a 2-ply and for a color changing fiber, in the past I have been by default doing a 2-ply fractal. But in this case, I ended up just doing spinning the entire ball of fiber I had from end to end, and then I am going to do a 2-ply by grabbing one, basically like the first end to the second end, and then plying it together that way. So now that I'm done with my spin, you'll see here that I am winding it up into a ball, and so this will help me. The way that I will do the 2-ply is that I will ply together, start at the center pole, like that end, and then ply it together with the outside end of the yarn ball. And so now I'm just winding it up into a ball. This is the first time that I am winding up an entire 4 ounces basically of fiber into a ball. And so this is what is considered your singles, because it's just I guess you could say single ply. This is just the thing that I was spinning the whole time. And I am fast forwarding this part. I just thought it was really cool to see the bobbin shrink and seeing kind of like those colors change as well. So we're just fast forwarding through this, but I just thought it looked very interesting to watch it in fast mode. But yeah, so this is my first time that I'm doing an entire skein of yarn 2-ply using a center pole ball and doing it that way. I usually ply straight from the bobbin, and the only time I have kind of done a wind it up into a ball and then do a 2-ply from the center and the outside of the ball is when I have some left over after I'm done plying most of my yarn. So this is the first time winding up into a really big ball. As you can see here, I had a bit of complications doing that because even though this bobbin has been resting for some time, and by resting it just means after I was done spinning all of it, I just left it there to sit. I was getting it kind of all tangled. I think at this point I was regretting my decision on winding up into a ball and doing it this way. So yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle, I will say, and you can probably tell now in this video I'm just like trying to troubleshoot, but I want to document kind of like, all of these steps for you all and also for me, so that I know for the future that this is maybe just not like the best method or one that I really want to do for an entire 4 ounces of fiber. But it's good when you have something small just to wind up or to ply. But yeah, at this point I was kind of regretting and kind of scared for the plying part of all of this fiber, but we're just gonna keep going, and so that you can all see what ends up happening. I do end up getting yarn. It's all good. Spoilers, but yeah. Again, I don't want to take out in the video any like mistakes that I've made. Not really, I want to show you the whole process. So yeah. Oh, also this part I am winding it up really slow, because once you get towards the end of your bobbin, and because the ball of yarn is so big, if you spin it at the same rate that you have been in the beginning, like the bobbin spins really fast, and it was making some weird noises for me. So I am just winding up this last part really slow. but it's kind of fun to see it all disappear off of the bobbin as I do this. And also, yes, I by default actually hold my yarn winder with my hand when I use it. There's not really a place in my apartment to anchor it down to anything, which I know seems kind of weird, but I have been holding it. Yes, it does kind of hurt my hand. I don't recommend it, but it's the way that I do it. All right, nearing the end here. Once I get to where that kind of like where I joined it to my yarn that's on my bobbin, I just cut it. I don't cut the blue yarn that you see here. I just cut where my fiber is and take out kind of like that extra fiber that's looped onto the blue yarn that's on my bobbin there. But yeah, now I am done winding the whole thing. It kind of took a lot longer than I thought it would. Now we're in focus. It's looking a little bit like a mess, and I'm a little scared. There's some pigtails, which is just when the yarn kind of like twists on itself, and I am a little scared. But doesn't it look pretty? Like that's just all singles. All right, so now is time for plying, and it might be one of my favorite things to ply, or like plying might be one of my favorite things versus like spinning my singles, although honestly I think it might be switching a bit now for me. But plying is really fun because it's like whatever winds up on your bobbin is your end result yarn, and it's so fun to see that. So this is my electric eel wheel 6.0, and yeah, it's from Dreaming Robots. I got it last year. I got it before I got my Ladybug wheel, and so now I mostly use it just for plying. But part of the reason for that is because I ply a lot faster than I spin my singles, and so the electric wheel lets me go really fast. And also the bobbins for this are really big, and so I don't have to really worry about running out of space on the bobbin to get all of that fiber onto my bobbin. So as you can see here, I am troubleshooting. I am trying to find the center piece of yarn, and definitely at this point I think that I am in trouble, because if this is the way we're starting, I'm scared how it's going to go as I keep working on it. But yeah, again, I just want to show you that, even if you hit some troubling sections, that you can hopefully still figure it out in the end. So I think at that point I just like cut off a piece of fluff that was kind of in the way. I found the center piece of yarn and the outer piece of yarn, and I'll show you how I hold my ball of yarn, because when I first did this with like a smaller piece of yarn to ply from like a center pole ball, I got into a huge tangled mess, and so I hold it a certain way so that it doesn't end up being super tangly as I am pulling it out of the ball to ply. As you can see here, I'm just like adjusting the tension band on my spinner so that it'll take my yarn. And yeah, it's time to ply and go really, really fast, hopefully. I'm actually surprised. Again, like I don't see this view of myself when I am spinning and when I'm plying. So it's interesting to see from this perspective, like how slow or fast I guess I go. And I'm actually surprised to see here that even though my wheel is going pretty fast, which I don't know if it really looks like that, but it could be like the frame rate of the camera, but I'm going at like I don't know, some really fast speed. Actually, no, I think this is a slower speed just to get started, and then later on I go like really fast. But when I am joining the two ends together to get that 2-ply, I kind of wait a little bit, as you can see. So I kind of like join them together when I like push my fingers back, and then I wait a little bit and then pull it forward so that it can go onto the bobbin. So that's very interesting. I have definitely underplied in the past, and so I have been trying to make sure that I wait a little bit and have the twist kind of get into my yarn before I put it onto the bobbin. So hopefully you can see here, or maybe in future clips of me plying here, that the way that I'm holding the ball of yarn is kind of sideways like this, and so that actually the bottom of the center pole ball is facing inwards, and the part of the ball that I am pulling from the center is actually pointing away from the camera, so it's on the opposite side, and that way I feel like it doesn't get tangled with the outer strand of yarn, because the outer strand is the one that's going around and around the ball as you pull it off. And so if you had that center pull in the middle, it would just get twisted with each other, and you don't really want that because you're trying to just get them straight, and so that the machine is doing the twisting for you, if that maybe makes sense. But yeah, as you can see, I am not pulling from the center that you can see from the ball, it's on the opposite side. Here's another view that you might be able to see better, and maybe an even more clear explanation on how I hold this ball of yarn is that the center where I am pulling from, I have it touching the palm of my hand that I'm holding, and I have to kind of like move it around when that outside piece of yarn is going around. I feel like this is a pretty good view to see how I am using the center pole ball to do a 2-ply. You'll see that if there's kind of any kind of slack in the singles, that some pigtails will form, but I try to make sure to have tension so that it doesn't get all tangled up when it's getting twisted by the wheel. Here's a closer up view. I tried to get it so that you can actually see the two of the strands combining together, and I thought that maybe this part would be good because it looks like one ply, I guess, is white and the other one is purple, so you might be able to see that twist a little better because of the slight contrast in color. I also like to have, you can see my middle ring and pinky finger separating the two strands. So I've plied all of this in one night. I usually do not like to ply in separate sections or like on separate occasions or days. I like to just ply it all at once because once you put it down, I feel like it gets too tangled. So this is still the same night. I just, didn't film every single second of me plying, but I think this is me going turbo mode now. I'm almost at max speed on my electric wheel. I think I'm at like 6 something speed on this wheel, and I think max might be 7 or a little above that. Oh, this is another part that I was getting towards the middle of my center pole ball. Things started to get interesting. started getting more pigtails. The ball was collapsing in on itself, and so grabbing that yarn and getting it to be kind of tensioned was starting to get hard, dealing with pigtails, having to stop a lot more often to just kind of figure out those knots and get them sorted. Oh yeah, and you can see for some reason in the middle, my machine started like moving sideways while I was spinning. I thought that was kind of funny. You can see my bobbins getting filled up with my yarn, and it always makes me so happy to see it kind of like at this stage because I know that I'm like almost done. Alright, I'm just showing you all now that this is what my ball looks like. I definitely was like, okay, I don't want to do this technique again. Not for a full ball of yarn. Again, if there was just like a small leftover section of my singles that I just want to spin up into a ball and do a 2-ply, like that's fine. But if you did a big ball, like I don't know if I would recommend this or do this again. I'm sure people have success doing this, but it was just not for me. But again, this is my first time doing it, so surprisingly, I thought that the end of this would get a lot more tangly. I mean, it kind of looks like there's no ball anymore, but it actually went by the most smooth. It was just the middle part of the ball that got really tangly and all knots were forming. I thought at some point I would have to cut my yarn, but thankfully I did not. Surprisingly, I did not. But yeah, here's how I'm just doing this ending section, and I'm just showing you I'm really just like pulling that yarn, getting it all straight. And since it was a center pull ball and you pulled from both ends, you just end up with a loop at the end, but that makes sure that you use all of your singles for your 2-ply. Alright, and I just transitioned camera view here so you can see I am done. I just let go of it and have it finished on my bobbin. Now is time for another fun part where I wind it up onto my niddy noddy. And what's really great about this is that it creates a 2-yard circle. So every full loop I make, I count. So I count each, full loop I make, and then I multiply it by 2, and that's kind of an approximate yardage of all of my yarn. And so here I'm just winding it up on to my niddy noddy. I am fast forwarding it because I don't think it's that interesting to watch, but if you look at my bobbin as I do this, you can kind of again see that like slow progression of the yarn coming off of the bobbin. And to me, I think that's fun to watch. So maybe to others it's also fun to watch, but yeah, this is pretty funny. I also want to note that I do keep track of the yardage before I wash the yarn and also after I wash the yarn, and I've noticed a pretty big difference in yardage. Usually after I wash the yarn, my yardage shrinks, and I think that's just how the yarn blooms and all of that, so something to keep in mind. However, I don't usually count the yardage after wash until I wind it up for a project. Just because I don't want to, I'm too lazy to wind it up again. So we've reached the end. That is all of the yarn wound up onto my niddy noddy. Again, I just cut off that part that connects, although not the yarn that is on my bobbin, so I can reuse it for future spins. And here I'm just showing you how I tie my yarn so that the ends kind of so it doesn't unravel when I am washing it, when it dries, and all of that. I just grab 2, sometimes 3, but usually 2 scrap pieces of yarn, and I usually tie 1 for each end, but in this case, since the ends are pretty close together, I do like that figure 8 thing, that if you buy yarn that comes in hanks, I think you will usually see the yarn kind of have these ties in it, and so I make 2 kind of openings in the yarn and I kind of do a figure 8 around them. And then in this case, I just tied one of my hand spun ends to this scrap piece of yarn. And then I tied the other side of the scrap piece of yarn to the other end of my hand spun yarn. And then I tied those 2 scrap piece ends together to keep it in place. And then I just flip it over so it's around like the halfway point. That I get my second scrap piece of yarn, and I do the same kind of figure 8 thing through the sections and tie it together. All right, now it's time to take it off of the Nitty Knotty. And I could not believe how pigtaily this skein came up. So I'm like putting this under a lot of tension just to like show you, but like, okay, I'm gonna like let go of that, and it like just twists in on itself like crazy. None of my other hand spun has done this to me before, and I was kind of terrified. I wasn't sure if, maybe this means I overspun it? Overplied it? I don't know, but it never looked that crazy for me before. Now I'm just putting, this is something I like to do. I like to put, although now it's out of view of camera, but I like to put a zip tie on one end to help when I wash it and dry it. So now I have a bucket of water. It is warm water, and I put some wool wash in there just because I like things to smell nice. And so I get my really twisted mess in there. And looking back, I think that I might have played around with this yarn a little too much in the water. I don't know if I might have ruined the fiber or had a lot of potential for it to felt on me, but I really wanted to get those pigtails out. So I thought if I got it wet and that it's heavy with water, and I kind of like did a dunk and kind of like straighten it out a little bit, a couple or a few times, that it would help with that. Don't know if it actually would or not, but you know, again, I'm just showing you what I did here. This is not a instructions on how to do something correctly, because I'm just doing whatever I feel like doing. Now I'm just going to lay it in the water now for it to soak and just rest for a little bit. It might have been maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes. And then I come back to it and I squeeze out the water. This is where I think it's really helpful to have a zip tie, because you have an end to really kind of grab and make sure it's all straight. Because when the yarn is wet, I feel like it's hard to untangle it when it's tangled. So to have like that zip tie, to have that for sure, like the end that is straight and that you can carry the yarn and it won't tangle is kind of nice. Slowly moving it over to a towel, and I kind of do that. This is what I do with my knits when I wash them and block them, so I'm just rolling it up onto a towel now. I do that thing where you step on it to get some of that water out. And now for the kind of fun part, I put the yarn loop around my wrist, and then I kind of like aggressively do that motion that you can see to try and get it to be, the yarn to be straight, and to maybe get some of those pigtails out and to kind of fluff up the yarn. I don't know if I can really tell a difference in the final yarn if I do this or I don't do this, but some people also thwack the yarn, which is when they just grab an end and they kind of like whack it onto the ground or table or something, but I don't like doing that, so I just do that with my arms. I think that's also another technique. And now it's time to hang it, and it's, again, nice with the zip tie, so you can just hang it that way. Okay, now the yarn is all dry. It is the next day. You can see all the pretty colors, and now all there is left to do is to wind it. I usually have to take a few takes to wind it up to look pretty. So you can just see here just kind of how I do that. You have to twist it pretty tight for it to look nice in the skein. I kind of loop it around my knee, which you kind of can't see, but then it twists on itself, and then you can pull through. Again, the zip tie is nice because you can pull with the zip tie through that loop, kind of adjust your skein, and then you get a really nice, really pretty looking hand spun skein of yarn. So that is the end product. I think it looks really pretty. Definitely more, the colors look a lot more blended out than I initially thought it would come out, and so that's like a new learning for me. And also it's my first hand spun with a nylon fiber content in there, so that's pretty cool. I'm excited to knit with this and see how the color changes worked out, because in this case I didn't do a fractal spin. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next Spin With Me episode.